You are listening to All Jiu-Jitsu Podcast. In this series, we're looking at the business side of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. In our episodes, we have conversations with professional athletes, BJJ brands, business experts, freelancers serving BJJ community, media personalities, and so on. Our today's guest is a legend of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and MMA, Master Ricardo Liborio. Master Liborio was at the inception of the iconic establishments such as Brazilian Top Team and the American Top Team, having both performed at the highest level and also coached some of the best athletes in the world. In this episode, we're not talking about his past, but focusing on the present and the future, presented through his latest venture called Martial Arts Nation and his work as a lecturer at the University of Central Florida. It's a fantastic conversation with a true leader. This podcast is brought to you by alljujitsu.com, the world's first complete business platform for BJJ professionals. We hope you enjoy this episode, and if you do, please subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Okay, so I don't want to talk too much outside of the record, so we are now recording. Master Ricardo Liborio, thanks very much for joining All Jiu-Jitsu Podcast.
No, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. It's an honor. I hope everybody's there safe and healthy and with a good positive mind, because everything is going to pass, and it's going to be we're different or we're the same, but it's we'll overcome this like anything else. It's not the first time. It's not the first time that we face crisis and adversity, and that's the true character. That's the true character. The true martial arts character comes in adversity. It's not when everything is okay. So it'll be all right. That's my point.
For sure, we'll persevere. So I'm right now. I'll make a point specifically not to go into your past in jiu-jitsu and what you have accomplished in jiu-jitsu, beyond saying that you're obviously a legend of our sport. And if people don't know who you are, they should. So they should go and research it and find out everything about you. But I assume most people will actually know, obviously, of your contribution to the sport. So what I want to start with instead is the present. What are you up to now? What are you up to these days? Aside from Corona, obviously you're also locked at home, but aside from that, if Corona didn't exist, what are your current activities?
Let me tell you what's happening. So I moved to Orlando around 4 years ago. When I moved to Orlando, it was almost at the same time that I was getting out of American Top Team. And my idea at the time was really actually working on the support system for the licensing company for American Top Team. Because what happened to us is we're selling licenses, but in reality, the only thing that we were giving to them were the logo, the name, which is not enough to be sustainable. It's not enough to be successful. And there are systems that I was using in our school there was very necessary, successful in certain ways, but definitely necessary for any business, any martial arts school. You have to have a couple pillars on this thing. So I started working on this. I started working on building up the systems for American Top Team licensees, and I decided to get out of American Top Team and pursue my own brand and my own company. For quite a while, I had this standard operational procedures, what I think is necessary to be successful in a martial arts school. And I created this brand called Martial Arts Nation. So Martial Arts Nation in the beginning is supposed to be another, grappling, BJJ, MMA team, martial arts school. A martial arts school, plain and simple, which I would not just be concentrating in jiu-jitsu, especially for the kids program. I think is necessary. I think is important for them to learn everything. I really think it's necessary for kids to learn martial arts as a whole, some striking parts, some the takedown part, from the ground, everything else, and they compete in whatever they decide to do it. So we create a rich curriculum for kids, involved in that. But at the same time, BJJ background guys are not looking for more curriculum. BJJ background guys, they probably have a solid curriculum coming with a good lineage that they break down positions and they teach it in a certain way how to teach, but not the business. BJJ is really, really behind as a traditional martial arts. We're really 40 years behind or more, really more than that. I can say more than 40 years. The traditional martial art is started really actually learning and researching business in the 70s. And it's not what happened with BJJ. The BJJ business models were outdated and based a lot in competition only, and not being successful in a certain way, not understanding the demographics per se. So I started working a lot on this, and I'm gonna tell you a little of the story because I really started working and I'm collecting data and collecting. It's a lot of content, a lot of context. It's a lot of knowledge, not just from me, from people that actually own the schools and doing what they think is right in a certain demographics. Because even this understanding that the things that's going to be working in Ireland may not work in New York, Manhattan, which may not work in Iowa, farmland. You know, all this understanding of this vision of the business is extremely important for you to be successful. You cannot just get a model and just try to throw it out there and it works for everybody. It's not like that. It doesn't work this way. You know, so there was a lot of researching and learning and a lot of learning from failures. That's what it is. At the same time, I started looking for help. I see that when I can't do this by myself, I need some people to help me with. I got in contact with a lot of my students, but mainly I look for help inside the university. I live 10 minutes from University of Central Florida, which is the second largest university in the United States, with 78,000 kids, 78,000 people. And when I got into the university through a common friend, in reality, was interesting, Peter, because I researched martial arts and University of Central Florida. And the name that came up was the name of Dr. Fukuda, who is a professor, researcher, who actually made a research about judo and kinesiology. And I went through my Facebook and I find out Dr. Fukuda, and I found out that I have one friend in common with him. So I contact that friend who put me in connection with Dr. Fukuda, who they already knew me in a certain way. He's a big judo guy and a fan of jiu-jitsu too. And we sit down and we find out what we can do together in terms of jiu-jitsu. And jiu-jitsu is a big ascendant sport in the United States. Jiu-jitsu and grappling is really hot here right now in the youth. But it was completely different for me and to me, because some of those kids, when I started working, I'm telling you what it is. I started working with Dr. Fukuda. I got some people to work on his researches, you know, and we trade a lot of network, and we came up with the idea at one point to create a class, a subject class, a 3-credit course inside the university, which will be Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is one of the first ones in the country, or better in the world. It's not the first one, but was one of the first ones. And I was started teaching. So they went to my background. My background, actually, I went to school for business in Brazil, and I worked in a bank for quite a while. So I have to prove my background. I have to prove my university credits and everything else. So they approved me, showing the extraordinary ability as a teacher, as former world champion and things like that. And I was admitted as a adjunct professor into the university. And then really this thing skyrocketed. And was so amazing to me, Peter, because I was about to launch this new license, which would be MA Nation, which is Martial Arts Nation. And I have a lot of my students wanted to, a lot of people were asking me, what are we going to do? We need an MA Nation. We need MA Nation. But when I started working with the university, I just fall in love completely with dealing with the kids and dealing with the students and dealing many daily basis. Something that fulfilled me completely. There's no money to this. That's the point to say. It is not something for money, but it is tremendous. I have tremendous amount of pleasure dealing with those kids. And that age group from 18 to 22, 25 years old, which is the average age there, and all the complexity on how they get out of house the first time, how they foresee the future pretty close, all these little things there, I think is a perfect fit for jiu-jitsu. Perfect. It's very, very perfect. And at the same time, I started teaching at the club. When I started teaching at the club, we had 16 students. Actually, the club came from an MMA club. And at one point, we opened up the BJJ club. And when we opened up the BJJ club, we had initially 16 students. And now we have more than 360. 1 year and a half. And what I did over there, it was exactly using the pillars that I think is important for business. So you have to have a marketing plan. You have to have a sales, right? You have to have a sales plan. You do have to have a instructor's material, not just a curriculum, but a way to teach your instructors. It is very important, even for small school owners, they have to understand that the business cannot just work around you. You have to be able to teach other people the way you want to teach others. Do you want your company to operate in a certain way? You have to establish a instructor's material and how to teach them how to teach. It's extremely important. And after that, very important, and people sometimes pass by over the head, is the retention. We have to have a retention system. Because if you have 20 people coming in and 22 leaving every end of the month, you're not making it, at all. And we come from this point that even if you're successful, you can have a successful enterprise, which it means that you can make money. You can make money with the school. But if you cannot reply while you have it to a second location or to run without you really just have an enterprise. You don't have a business. That's different. So we started working on a lot of those content and working on a lot of those branches of the business, what I think is necessary. And we apply a lot of this into the UCF project, and it just skyrocketed. This thing was a phenom. We're the largest sports club inside the whole entire University of Central Florida. That's ridiculous. There's nobody even close to us. We're the largest. The Jiu-Jitsu is the largest sports club in University of Central Florida. It's something that people are still looking at, and of course as when I took the position inside the university and I'm working for the university, it gave me openness to knocking everybody's door. So I went to so many different. This is the beauty of what I absolutely love it, Peter, because I'm working with kinesiology department. I'm working with the psychology college. I'm working with what is the name? Dr. Justin. Brilliant sports administration MBA. It's just really, there's so many people to learn from. There's so much to learn, from marketing college, whoever is doing the marketing, whoever is doing It's everything. It's everything that you can imagine there is inside a university. So for me, it was like, oh my god, this is a dream come true. And it was really the first time that I started working inside a university, and I just fall in love with it. Absolutely. So the idea from there is we created a institute. This institute called International Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Institute, and we're really actually we're thinking about spreading out the model that we have at UCF to all the other schools. So last year we did an event, and we brought in 350 guys, 350 people. But this event was this. It was a completely different thing. And this is a different approach in how to see the jiu-jitsu thing, because people don't realize that, a lot of people don't realize that 3%, only 3% of people that practice jiu-jitsu are competitors. 97% is recreational. This is a statistic came out of Marcelo, who is the president of IBJJF. 3% only. 97% it is recreational. People are doing this or because they want to feel good, or they want to look good, or both. And from that, you have to cater to these people even more than the 3% that wants to compete. So if your idea is to push hard in competition to try to get credibility in competition, it's something that you have to reevaluate. And a lot of people from jiu-jitsu has this, at least, it's an old school idea on, with the assumption that you're going to win tournaments, you're going to win the world championship, you're going to make money if you open a school, which is so wrong. It's just such a wrong idea of what the business is. And at the same time, the guy who doesn't have any kind of awareness on the community, if he have business systems, he's going to succeed much faster than somebody who has a bigger name.
Yeah, so the black belt in jiu-jitsu doesn't equate necessarily to black belt in business, right? So that's kind of the classic understanding of this. So let me ask you just a couple of questions if we go back to a few things that you said. So first, the teachings that you do in the university. So you said you run a class and you run a club. Are they two distinct things?
Yeah, two distinct things.
And so what form does the class teaching take place? Like, what does it look like? Is it a jiu-jitsu class or is it a lecture?
No, it's a real class. So the way we're doing it right now, I have a syllabus to teach. I have a syllabus. We have final exams. We have graduation dates and all this. From that, I open up in a form of final exam and quizzes during the time. And we teach them every day during 3 days a week. 3 days a week, because we have three different classes. We're going to jump into the level 3 right now. Now we have a level 1, level 2 of those guys, because I'm teaching for a year and a half now, or a year. And those kids that want to continue doing jiu-jitsu, they jump to the level 2 already. Before that, there was just in the beginning MMA, beginners MMA, which is all of them are run with syllabus. We got to teach them a couple things and techniques and history of the sport and the benefits of the sport to physiology and benefits mental. All this, we try to approach this differently. So when I started teaching the classes, also, we actually matched those classes up with having the club right after that, so the kids to stay. I usually don't let those guys train hard at the class so they can train hard at the club. And the club, we transformed the club into something completely different. What we did with the club is almost like a lounge. What we did, we have places that people come, they drink coffee, they're getting acai, People are coming over just to do their homework. People are coming to eat their lunch, and you have the mats. And what we did, it was the look and feel that we wanted to. It's not there yet. Is to get almost like a Barnes and Nobles with the mats. You know, there's the Starbucks with the mats, where you come over here, got a coffee, you got the mats, and you read a book, you do something. But it is the hangout, and this is the most important thing about it, because I believe that the sport brings so much more mental wellness than anything else. People really thinking about the physical aspect. People thinking of the practicality of the jiu-jitsu in your daily life. It is therapy, man. Jiu-jitsu is the new yoga, Peter, for tough people. You know, sure. That's what it is. So it is trendy, it's cool. That's what it is. And the segment they take it, the way we did at University of Central Florida, we actually made an approach for the level 2 classes to bring 3 components for it. There was a big, one of the big final exams that we did it. Components were cultural, which is we have a cultural will, and as a cultural will, we have to present something they will learn from BJJ. And the kids came up. We did this huge barbecue with a lot of Brazilian meat, Brazilian barbecue. That's pretty common. And after that, we have art. The kids have to show something of the art, so they painting the geese, and they painting paintings, they drawing, they play music, a lot of music, because we play a lot of music during training here. And in the food part, all the acai, all the coffee, all the the cheese bread, things that you learn that some of those kids never heard. Some of those kids didn't even know where Brazil was, honestly, until they really actually stopped to learn BJJ. So that approach, it is even for my heritage from Brazilian, I think it is an amazing introduction of Brazil inside the American educational system, but presented in the right way. And I'm really proud of this, and I think this is going to spread out.
Yeah. So it's kind of maintaining jiu-jitsu as a core activity, but it becomes much more than that, right? So while jiu-jitsu is still there, expanding the number of activities, the quality of activities around jiu-jitsu to build the community and make it less transactional, even from a business standpoint, because a lot of the times when you talk about business with somebody, business in jiu-jitsu, the mind switches to something almost negative, right? It's like, oh, we have to charge, it all becomes around money, but it's the building of the community that I think what you're talking about here, that enables people to enjoy it much more, and rather than just saying, I'm going to pay my dues, my fees, attend jiu-jitsu classes, go home, and that's the transaction that I'm engaging in every day.
Peter, 100%, it is how to present things to people, right? Like, let's go back to the demographics first. If you actually built up a kids program, you have to have the understanding that for kids has to be fun, has to be informational, but beyond anything else, you have to form character. You have to help build the character of the kids. Life skills. You have to give all the social skills, all things but you have to break down this in a way that the kids can understand. And more than anything, as business, the parents have to understand what you're doing. If the parent don't understand, they do not sign the checks, and they do not going to value what you do. So from here, for me, let me just show something here. This is what I'm saying that I put a lot of time into working on. Okay, this is important. Hold on for a second. So this is important to do it. So what we did was this. in terms of character education. So there is a 5-minute time that you have to have it inside your classroom kids. That you talk about character education, which can be anything. So we, as a martial arts nation, we built up things like that. This is a manual here that was I don't know if you can see it. It's a determination. We call values. So we got it. Goes from age group to age group. It's called determination. But this is a instructor's material. You're going to instruct instructors. My main goal is to instruct instructors so they can learn how to talk to kids from 11 to 13 years old, for example. It's 11 to 13 years old and how to talk to them. You cannot talk to 11 to 13-year-old age group as you're doing it with 5 to 7. It is a completely different approach. And you have to teach the instructors how to talk about this. And from this and loyalty, for example, and courage, things like that. Things like this, like a lesson from courage, for example. You sit down the kids, and for you to understand, this is really important. During the class, you stop and you sit down the kids on the floor looking at you. But it has to be in a place that the parents are around. Here in America, the parents go bring the kids to the martial arts classes. So the parents are on outside, and you sit down the kids looking, facing me, so I can face the parents. Right? Say that you're a parent, and I put the kids on the floor, and they're looking at me, and I'm looking at them, but I'm looking at the parent right here. And when I started talking about courage, and I try to create a definition from courage and make them understand that being courage is not the absence of fear. Fear always going to be there. Courage just keep you doing what you think is right in your heart. And little things like that, you have to create it. This is what we did it. We created the line, so that the instructor can really break down and clearly make the kids understand in age appropriate what a courage means. Is a courage being, but I still have fear. Well, that's what it's supposed to be, And you give an example, you ask them what it is, and you give an example of what it is, and you show them the real application of being courageous in the life, Tell the truth for sometimes require courage. And from that, you go over and you work with homeworks for those kids. You ask them to show the real application of the value of courage in life. Now, there is one of the most important things. You as a parent, Peter, when you see that the instructor is teaching much more than just the curriculum so they can learn how to choke and armbar people, then they understand that you are priceless to them because you're teaching the kids how to be better human beings, man. And there's no price tag on this. No price tag. And this is irreplaceable. It's priceless.
When I'm looking at this,
and that's the value, because if you just go there and run your classes and all the measurements is just only if they learn the technique or not, you're not special. You're not special. You're not really bringing. Even if you are doing all these things here, but you do not present this to the parents and make them understand that you're doing this for their kids, you cannot charge whatever you think you deserve it.
Yeah. And even if we disconnect for a second from the charging bit, this really kind of resonates with me personally, because I started my academy almost 4 years ago at this point, right? So we started off with adults, and then just last year we introduced the kids and teens classes, and I found myself struggling with designing the systems that I would think be effective, and I'm still at a point where it's all trial and error. So I'm trying some things, they either work or they don't work, and then I either continue doing them or I disregard them. or discard them rather. And but again, it takes so much time rather than having something concise, packaged for me that I could use directly. So, if I'm looking at this at this moment, it's like this is priceless for me as a coach as well. If I had these systems available to me, just when I started, I was relatively inexperienced. I was in a position where I had to start the academy without having that much experience running it. Something like this would have been absolutely amazing to me.
It's tremendous. And what happened is I had to learn this a lot. It's not something that I created. What I did in a certain way, I think there's not a lot of BJJ schools doing this, is I've been in the business for a long, long time. I've been, made all the mistakes that's possible for you to do it. I follow up phases and phases for at least the jiu-jitsu and grappling in the United States and around the world. I've been involved with jiu-jitsu before school or before it has this greatness following and be proved that not just being efficient, but also is used as a tool to help people. Now, like I said, all this doesn't really matter. I tell you this is very dear to my heart, Peter, because the guy who I learned and inspired me to be where I am today, Carlson Gracie. Carlson was the worst businessman that you can ever imagine. Carlson was pure heart, amazing human being, but he ended up suffering so much for not having knowledge or not having this maybe an extra trust to delegate to people what are they supposed to be doing that he does not have as a strength. And that's something extremely important. If you're not a salesperson, I'm not a great salesperson. I'm telling you this right now. I passionate about my things. I can talk about you, Peter. I cannot talk about me. All those little things that I know that I, in a certain way, are my weaknesses. And it's okay. Just find somebody who can actually fulfill this needs for you. Somebody's going to be working on these areas while you don't feel that you're a strain on it. And it's all right. It's all good. But you have to have the mind. You cannot just go to a business without having all this research is done and all the business plan in place and all this little, at least this 4 pillars and how you have to think of this 4 components. Like I was saying to you, right here, I'll show you this. This I don't know if this is a curriculum, right? This is a basic curriculum for you to teach. Even if you don't have this for the high level black belt, it's all right. But if you really want to open up a school, you have to have this curriculum from class 1 to at least middle color belts, from kids that go up to green belt, or at least adults go to blue belt, because that's the base of the pyramid. This is really the people that are paying, that are keeping your company afloat. And you have to get the best service for them. No doubt at all. And of course, you have to master this up to the point that your black belt at least know what he have to learn to be considered a good black belt. Even if it's in your mind, it's 15 years of content. All right. It's all up to you. It can be 20 years of content. If you think that the guy has to get it from white belt to the black belt in 20 years, it's all good as long as you believe in that and you put it down on paper so people can see it, that they can go from here to here. And this is an educational tool. You've got to understand this. Here in America, it's pretty easy to understand. People understand the educational process from the school and from here to here and the tests and things. So it's easier. It's easier to follow that model because you can talk to the parent about what you're going to be doing with their kids in terms of learning, the learning curve, and how they're going to be learning from here to here, and they're going to be tested from here to here. If they show up, if they don't show up, it's the same model. And parents understand that, and parents believe that because they probably grew up in this educational community too. Everybody went to school.
Yeah. And it's like a model for anything else, or like a structure for anything else. And jiu-jitsu, in a way, I guess it's beautifully unstructured up to this point, right? It's there's certain beauty in it, right? There's certain kind of special thing in jiu-jitsu from the fact that it's not very structured as a lot of other disciplines. But I think in a certain ways, again, from if I understand you correctly as well, in certain ways we have to put the structure in place. We have to put a pathway and a roadmap for people to follow if we are to create something more professional.
Let me just add something, and very few people have done it like I did. I'm one of the only guys in the world that had this successful school from kids from 3 years old. We used to work with 3 years old up to UFC world champion, right? And 80-year-old man who was coming in. So we have this massive gym with all the students. And at one point there we have 750 students. But the most important, like you say, that is elastic structure. Don't compromise. You don't need to compromise what you believe that's true. If you believe it's true, is no organization. It's okay. I mean, you can have and charge for a class with no structure at all, just with ropes. It's all right. The only thing you have to do is define that this is the open mat class. Define that this is a price in it. Define that somebody's going to have to charging, because you can. I always say that, Peter, that you can have the best BJJ guy in the world. You can have Roger Gracie, right? Which is, I think, is tremendous. Roger Gracie. But if nobody knows where Roger Gracie is, he is not making money. Now, I say, for example, that everybody knows where Roger Gracie is. And everybody walking in and stepping on his gym. If there's nobody there to sell and collect the payment, you're not making money. If Roger Gracie does not put in a schedule and it does not define what his product is from the schedule and the class structure, he's probably going to lose a lot of people. And
again, yes.
You can choose to do whatever you want to do it, but you at least have to structure a couple of things that it's fundamental. It's fundamental.
Yeah. And then you can also track the results as a consequence of this, right? So if you put certain structure, you can put some form of relationship between input and output, right? So what do you do? What do you put into your company or your business, your Jiu-Jitsu academy, and what comes out at the end of it? And one thing that I hope people who are listening also understand that. Sometimes, in Jiu-Jitsu community, people almost take pride in saying and vocalizing, like, I'm not a businessman, I'm just good at Jiu-Jitsu, so that's what I do. But what people sometimes don't understand, especially in the crisis situation like we're facing now with coronavirus, is if your business is not solid at the foundation, you can't rent premises, you can't afford tatami, you can't afford uniforms, you can't afford anything to make your dream come true through Jiu-Jitsu. Even if you only want to do Jiu-Jitsu and nothing else, it is your job to make sure that you can afford it if you want to spread it. If you declare that your mission on this planet is to spread Jiu-Jitsu and spread the love for the sport.
100%. And also, you see that the stimulus plan that comes in right now, that people here in America is getting some sort of loan or some sort of support from the government. if you are your love for sport, and you cannot understand to delegate the business section to someone, you probably going to close doors because you cannot even get a loan now. So you have to kind of prove they have some structure. They pay from your accountant, things like that. That's basic. That the love for a sport does not guarantee success, even if you're successful as a competitor. 100%. And there is this romantic knowledge that really doesn't mean anything. Oh wow, it's dirty to make money. That's wrong. Especially if you want to make money and give away everything. Make money and give it to people. Give a scholarship. Go out and making nonprofit organizations, or even that, create a nonprofit organization. If the problem is money, let people donate to you. But this is not an excuse to create a structure so you can open your business in the correct way. It's not. It's pretty bad. And it's really pretty bad when jiu-jitsu schools are open and closed at the same time for lack of knowledge of the back end of the business. Not the class itself, the back end of the business. How to pay the bills, how to structure a business plan, how to contact your accountant, how to pay your taxes, how you pay all these little things. You have a software to get all the statistics, like you're saying, the input and output from all your businesses. Those little things are essential for being successful. Yeah. And you put as many times in this as teaching the class. Otherwise, it's okay if you're not good. It's okay that this is really make you freak out. I'm telling you this. I hate to go talk to my accountant. It's not my thing, Peter. I'm not good at this, but my wife is. So I found somebody that does it. I'll find out somebody who will do this. That's the point. And you have to be smart enough to think that you can't do everything, and to be humble enough to understand that too. Yeah.
It's like jiu-jitsu itself, right? You know what I mean? It's you have to recognize where your weak are. If you have a weak guard, you can't pretend that you have a good guard and then hope everything is going to work out. You have to recognize it and you have to address it one way or the other.
100%. And you have to be humble enough to, and for me, it was this. When I moved to the United States, I had a real baggage on how to run martial arts schools, or not teams, right? Because I came from Carlson Gray's team, and I was leading Carlson Gray's team at one time. And after that, Brazilian top team I was in the founders. And when I moved to US, I knew it of American top team would be a baby well. And I knew what it was making money, at least in Brazilian standards, and what it was not. So I knew it, for example, that I could never count on professional fighters to be successful. I can count on the marketing dollars that they can bring into the table, and the credibility that is, of course, is priceless. But at the same time, you can count on coaching them and making money every time that they fight, because something really bad can happen, and if they do not fight and they expire their careers, and there's always something that I knew it, that I have to create a support system to be successful in other ways. So the best way to use the marketing dollars that you get from UFC fighters, for example, is to selling credible programs. And that's what we did. And we were successful. We made money. And but this understanding came from Brazilian top team times and Carlson Gray's times, and everybody was scattering for money. And we knew it, that you can't count with pro fighters. There's too much risk on this. It's not economically, feasible. So now you have this great reputation of a coach and martial arts itself, but without business structure, you can make a dime on it. You fight. When you fight, you make some money. But even with that, if you really go take a look at it, a lot of the UFC fighters that you think you made it, no, they're really, really, really starving. You know, it's pretty. There's more depth into you even imagine from that.
And in terms of, so I have a question then from that. So you've dealt obviously with multitude of high-profile athletes, both jiu-jitsu and MMA, and obviously there are the differences. So you can obviously make more money in MMA than you can in jiu-jitsu, but it also kind of brings you to those extremes. The expenses are a lot higher in MMA. That's why I think what you're talking about, when people have an illusion that somebody's absolutely killing it, they need to spend so much more money as well than they would on jiu-jitsu training, right? So it doesn't always balance, and it's not always in the green in terms of their personal profitability, right? But from somebody who was in the role of a leader in these organizations, how do you see people that are athletes that are not yet in the coaching position? What do they need to, what steps might they need to take in order to make sure that they are successful both in competition in terms of performance, but also financially?
Um, First of all, it comes down to research and knowledge and education. You have to have a financial education. It's in the end is a mathematical problem. You cannot spend more than you make, and as much as you want to live a certain lifestyle, can never forget that there was, especially in the fighting game, you have a very short window to make money and save your money, save beyond anything else, because for sure I have seen it, people that you could never imagine that people that you can never say that this guy would never be famous. This always going to be famous. But even if he has certain degree of respectability on the community, always, man, the landscape just changes like this. And suddenly this guy's not in the media anymore, and he doesn't have the role to play, and you're not making money, not making any money. And you see there's a lot. I have seen fighters that the first thing that they did after they fought for the belt, it was to buying a Porsche and spending half of the money that he made, thinking the next time I'm going to make more. And it's not the way it works. Really, literally, it's not the way it works. You have to be financial mature to understand this, that this is not going to come. And the short window is very, very is very, very slim and feasible. It's hard to make them understand. It comes with education, you know, and there's really, it's a lifestyle. Let's put it this way, Peter. You know, people change their lifestyle, and suddenly when you see it, they're counting with money there's not there anymore, there yet. You know, and unless you have a business, what are you doing with your fights is just an adventure. You know, it is really what it is. You don't have a business. You have a venture that is working into a certain time. But and I really come from a background to seeing so many. I've been in so many champions corners, and I can't count in my hands here how many of those champions are passing through difficulties right now. You know, because they could not invest, or they didn't have the background of investing. Let's put it this way, which not their fault, man. It's not their fault because they're so concentrating and improving as a fighters that they do not know the basics of the business. You know, I was fortunate to went to school I worked in a bank before. I hated working in a bank, hated with all my heart, but I opened up my eyes for a couple of things that maybe some of the guys didn't. And yeah, and even in a time of crisis that we are right now, you know, somebody who does not have a passive income or other types of income is struggling like everybody else, you know?
Yeah.
Don't know when you're going to fight again. Right now, even if you fight again, don't forget this. Um, all this, all this line of events we're pushing back. So you don't know really when you're going to fight again, when you're going to make money again.
Yeah, and if we talk about jiu-jitsu fighters, that I said they're not even making as much money as MMA fighters in absolute terms. The struggle can be even stronger there. And yeah, so education, what you mentioned is education is key here from early days. So jiu-jitsu is growing as a sport. There is a little bit more money, being on the scene available, whether it's sponsors or other means. But again, if you don't understand it from the very beginning with your limited amount of money that you have, what to do with them, how to save them, and what it eventually means for your overall life, right? And what you're going to do after your competitive career is finished. Which is, again, it's a pretty kind of classical problem across all sports, right? It's very notorious, in America, like NFL stars. I was reading some statistics that's like nearly like 30%. I could be wrong on the figure, but like 30% of NFL stars are declaring bankruptcy within like 5 years or something like this. So it's pretty uniform problem across all sports, I presume.
Yeah, and especially when they follow what everybody else is doing in the lifestyle. Come on, that's it's for a Brazilian guy, for example. We say the Brazilian guy that if you made more than $2 million or $1 million, for you to go back to real poverty, it's almost insane. You have to really have no understanding of how finances work. You have to have a very, very low understanding how finances work for you to simply just don't, wasted everything. And I said, $1 million nowadays is not $1 million that it was before. But you understand that, counting that in Brazil, $600, $400 is the minimum wage. You consider poverty. You got to understand this. $1, $1,000 in Brazil worth 5,000. $1,000 in Brazil is 5,000 reais, which is considered, you can't sustain with that. It's what I'm trying to say is you can't live above your means, man. You can't. It's a mathematical, equation there. That doesn't need to be a genius to know that.
Yeah, but it's. I hope that's the message that people listening to this will. I guess hopefully a lot of people understand this already. But if they don't, if you have to take anything out of this conversation, take this phrase: you can't spend more than you earn, and live by your means. So that's that's something that I absolutely agree with. But another question I have for you then is again, that's something I'm personally interested in. It's something I'm personally also kind of struggling in my head, kind of debating. So when you're running an academy, for example, or a school, and your business is solid, everything is fine, so you're growing inevitably. Like if you do the right things, you're growing. So at what point, or do you have to make a compromise, or how do you make that compromise between the growth and the kind of tight-knit community? Okay, is there a threshold where you say, okay, if I grow beyond a certain point, I don't have that tight community that attracted me in the first place, right? Because I like, for example, to know all my students' names and know roughly at least what they're doing. But then at some point, let's say where we grew beyond a certain point, I knew that there were some people that I couldn't remember their names, and that bothered me personally. So how do you deal with that?
Dealing with that has to be something that if this is really important to you, it's going to help you with retention a lot, amazingly. But you have to spend more time with them. You have to spend more time with your students and find out more about them in a personal level, right? I give an example. I know somebody who is really, really successful. This kid is really, really successful. They have so many students there in California. It is beyond belief. One of the things that they do at every time that they do a belt ceremony, after the belt ceremony, they call in for a conference. There's a conference between the parents and the kids, or a conference between you and your student itself, even adults. So from that, you actually gonna talk to them. What is the goods and the bads? Well, man, you did good on the exam, or you did good, but you could improve in this, and that. This just creates such a connection with the person that you really can't fake that. You can't fake sit down in front of your student and to talk to him about how he is doing it. And if you take interest in to know how he's doing it, there is really nothing else that you can do it to keep better retention than that. Is to know them, really in depth. That was you break the seal. You break the seal when you really actually dedicate. You care about people like that. So it may be so extremely consuming for you, but I think that you can manage, especially if you find a way that somebody else is doing other things that you don't like to do, or you're not good enough to do it. If it does make sense, if that's something that you have to put a time into this, and don't think that it really is the amount of attention that you give it to people much more than the number of the people that there is out there. If you have one student and you don't give a shit about them, man, believe me, it's not going to be more than you have 100 and you care about all of them. That's the reality. And care about all of them. And everybody has to understand is people has completely different needs. And you don't need to give in that attention that it's 100%. You don't need to unless you wanted to, unless you think it's important to you. And you can do it too. Don't forget this. Now, it is important for everybody to know that if you don't have some sort of attention and care for your students, they will not have it for you. I'm telling you right now. And they would not have it anyway. You'll be many times you think you give all this attention and you think there is this connection, and there's not. And when you see it, they change and they're going to a different school. And for whatever reason it was, sometimes you can't control it. You can't control the whole community, man. It's just impossible, Peter. It's absolutely impossible to think that you can be everywhere like God, and you can. Sometimes the guy's going to get out of your school not because of you, because of the lady at the front desk, or because they have a problem with some teammate, or you have a problem with another instructor that he doesn't feel like he likes him. Whatever it is there, that's reality what humanity is. Can't not have everybody liking you. Not even Jesus Christ had that. So my point is, you got to understand reality on that, and understand that community is. But if you have a great product that is really beyond anything else that is around you, people are going to be driven by you. And even with that, believe me, somebody's going to say that you suck. It's all right. It's okay. It's good. Man. This is humanity. That's part of the game. You have to understand that. Don't be so shaky by other people's opinions. Other people's opinions of you is their opinion. Not what you have to think about yourself. It's really got to take a little, put the professional hat on it, and it's okay. And every time that you're dealing with more people, the chances are that a bigger percentage is not going to like you. It is what it is. That's called leadership. Leadership is to put your face on it, man, for people to throw the rocks. That's it. That's it. And it's all right. It's part of leadership. You can't not have one or the other. You know what I'm saying? If you're a leader, if you're the guy saying no, if you're the guy demanding attention or giving attention, somebody would not like it. Somebody's going to think that they deserve more, and it's all right what they think, but there's limitations of what you think. What you
Yeah.
have to do it is analyze, debrief of what you're doing, if you're doing right or wrong. You know,
Yeah.
that's important.
And as long as you believe that you are doing the right thing, obviously, if somebody's feedback coincides with you actually knowing that you're not doing the right thing, you know deep down that you're not doing the right thing, but you're kind of getting away with it until somebody points it out to you, then
Yeah.
you start noticing. But if somebody gives their opinion, which contradict yours, that's fine. That as you said, it's absolutely okay.
But that's one you actually have all the tools, right? That you said something that's so important. If you don't have, uh, if you don't have statistics, if you don't have feedbacks from people, if you just think that whatever it is in your mind, it is your reality, not what a reality is. You got to capture people's eyes and opinions to understand exactly what's happening. And at the same time, for when a class that you think is amazing, be ready for people to say they suck, because that's how humans are. That is a taste. It's a matter of taste. It can't be hurtful, but you got to understand this. You have to know your demographics. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you're in the demographics that you try to sell, um, you know, you try to speak Hebrew for a bunch of Arabs, it's going to be hard. You know what I'm saying? And the other way too, you try to sell different things that people won't buy it. It's something that you think it is. Maybe you should be analyzing the feedback much more to know what reality is instead of try to put your own thing. If it makes sense what I'm saying. The analogy, it was, not completely the right one, but that's reality is,
Yeah.
yeah.
You have to recognize things for what they are, I guess. Um, and another, just a couple of questions to finish off. So, first one is in relation, going back to the Martial Arts Nation. So, could you summarize for us again the 4 pillars and what's the best way for our listeners to, if they want to get access to this material, to reach out? What's the best way to do that?
Listen, it's funny about this because we're thinking about launching Martial Arts Nation until the end of the year. And I got involved in some other projects too, especially the university project, which it took me so much. But up to the end of the year, I believe that MMA is going to be launched. We have right now the website is up, but all this content, all the material is starting to be finalized to be launched on the website as a real business. But there's something that I'm not going to give you a date right now. There's so much going on right now, that we have to pass through that. We're going to have to hold it to find the right time to do so, and this is very complex times for all the businesses. Everybody is struggling for not just money and try to figure it out what's going to be the future for all our sports, right? And there's industries there that, for example, Peter, they're much worse than us. No, I guess it's not going to be a lot of people that wanted to be in a cruise line, up to the end of the year, got stuck in a cruise line for a week with all this Corona thing. People are going to be more afraid, and jiu-jitsu is a contact sport. So there will be modifications, during the course of this, until somebody find a cure or a big good therapy for coronavirus. But even with that, all this is still remains to be seen. Everybody is really following up the news and following up what other people are doing, but nobody really knows what's going to happen in general. If a recession will come and everything else. But there's one thing to it. 100%, at least here in America, right? And I'm just saying that I'm not supportive or anything, but recession will come. and problems will come. And I hope everything is pretty well put. If the recession hits in, we don't have much violence. Because one of the biggest questions from everybody was what the real application of jiu-jitsu. And I had so many messages from people that are saying two things. I am so glad that I'm doing jiu-jitsu, or I wish that I have trained some sort of martial arts or self-defense. Because I think it's going to be violent. I think, at least here in America. And another thing is about the gun. A lot of people are buying guns here like more than toilet paper. For you to understand. They're buying more guns than toilet paper, thinking that something is going to happen. You know, I am not one of those. I'm not a gun guy. I don't have a gun. But I would not deny if I talk to you and if I think that it would be good to have a gun than to not have a gun. You know, so it would be crazy. Now, nobody ever lived what we're living in a time, you know. Oh, there was pandemics before, but it was no globalization of everything. Information was not passing the same way. Probably whatever happened there, you know, with the Spanish flu, for example, or other types of flu, or even the black, again, all these things there happened. There was no communication so fast as it is right now. Yeah. So if you never thought of that, boom, it's one of the best chances that you think that worth it a lot for you to actually be training jiu-jitsu at this point.
Yeah, and you probably wish that people went through some form of character development as well on the way through their childhood, so there's less violence and everything. So hopefully, yeah. So it kind of, our conversation feeds into multiple kind of facets of our social life, right? So it's one of it is being able to defend yourself, and the other one is hoping that the certain traits in people prevail, and the sanity and the kindness and compassion and courage and all those qualities prevail in people, because it is a crisis and it will probably get worse. And but again, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I think it would be both. I think from everybody right now, all the emotions right now are a lot of people, I believe, live their lives in the present. There's a lot of people that are living in habits, and a lot of people get out in the morning and just come back at night and get their time to sleep, and they're living their lives in a string of habits. Boom, from here to here to here to here to here. But right now, I think that everybody is putting a lot of thought on life and death. Let's be honest. Which unless I give a great example. All right, Peter, Brazil never been into a real war, an open war with other countries directly. We're part of World War II or World War I, but this is on a minimal scale with just a couple, soldiers going over there. This is for Brazilians, for example, is one of the first times they were really thinking about, man, I'm getting out of the streets, I'm going to die, or this life and death situation that brings you to the first encounter for a lot of people in reality that we're all going to die in one day, but it's not everybody who prepared themselves for it. They don't have too much spirituality, or don't have too much of a mental wellness to deal with things like that, like anxiety and depression, than even being stuck in the house right now. You know what I'm saying? You take analogy from jiu-jitsu and from other martial arts tremendously from situations from like this in life. What I guess what I try to say is this is an era of, after this is an era of thinking philosophically. A lot of people until this point here, when they really started facing possibilities, and life and death possibilities, you started thinking that, well, okay, did I do everything that I supposed to do? Did I accomplish things that I wanted to accomplish? Did I help others? Did I contribute to nature? Oh, things like that some of those guys never done it before, Is you should turn on the TV right now, even something for the kids. People are connected on TV right now. Just what you hear is today, 1,000 deaths. Yesterday, 1,000. You know what I'm saying? And it just is too much fear input. And if you don't have martial arts in your life like I do and you do and other things, man, you're behind. That's what I think I try to say. That we are very fortunate to have something like this that in a certain way helps you to prepare for something extra.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So on that note, kind of my last question, I guess, is how do we, again, there's probably very little we can do in the immediate future, especially with all of us being somewhat stuck, but again, that's probably not the last crisis in our history, right? There more things will come, whether it's a decade later, decades later. What do you think, as a community, as a jiu-jitsu community, can do to organically, in a healthy way, to grow the sport, to grow the martial arts?
Number one is make everybody understand that jiu-jitsu is way more than just a physical sport. Way more. What I mean that is there's three big aspects in jiu-jitsu, in my opinion. There's the physical, of course, the mental. Just even socializing the way we do when we gather training jiu-jitsu is extremely important to humanity, to human beings, to your students itself. A lot of your students know that they wanted to go back to train, not just to get sweat. It's just to socialize after the training. You combine two extremely powerful things. You got a great workout in a good environment. That's the place to be. That's the place to be. And besides that, when you connect with people, there's something that is spiritual. It's spiritual. There's nothing to do completely with religion. Although you can think in religion, what you think about spiritual is when you connect to something that's stronger than you, like nature, or connecting with other humans, or connecting with I don't know, if you believe in destiny, if you believe in science, if you believe in something else, do you believe is a superior power than you? Look, can you see it? There you go. If you believe there's a superior power than you, that's the spiritual. It does make sense. It doesn't need to be a complete God, or religion itself. It doesn't need to be that. It can be anything that you think is stronger than what you are. I think nature is stronger than I am. We all know that. Look, the virus here. This is stronger than us, right? And science, science too, is destiny. If you believe in destiny, or God, if you believe in God, whatever it is there. But this is the spiritual part that you have to work on it too. And I think we all combine this all together when you go to the jiu-jitsu school, when you have the right environment, that fits you.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense, and appreciate the thoughts on this. And again, I think the listeners will find it very interesting. I personally did. So on this note, we'll wrap it up. I hope this is not our last conversation. I think there's a lot more that we could learn from you, but really appreciate your time, and thanks a lot for joining. And
no, I truly appreciate you. No, Peter, thank you so much. It was a great conversation, and you came with this beautiful referral from Jason, which I love, and Jason Shields. I love this guy so very much. He's one of the best human beings that I know. And I hope you all stay healthy, stay safe, and let's pass all this thing together. Get this community to understand that we are much more than just a sport. Much more than just a sport. We're beyond anything else. We're a strong community. We're going to be here. Doesn't matter. We want to throw it at us. We're going to overcome like we always do. All right.
We hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you do, please subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.